It's been a fast journey, and what's interesting too is what you think you may need in 1 year or 1 month or what have you changes 6 months later, and the environment is constantly changing with fast growth as well. So it's also very demanding with the people. So finding the right people in place who can handle that fast growth, think innovatively, think entrepreneurially, have the resilience, and also to believe in the mission of what we're trying to do. Has probably been the toughest challenge, but also that we've been in this business now coming into our 7th year of business. We've got a really good team in place. And I do anticipate the growth will continue, but that's been the biggest theme here, is focusing on the people.
Welcome to Growth Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Every company goes through strategic pivots. The question is, how well will you lead through your strategic pivot? When you think about all of the things that must come together, all of the vision that you're trying to create, and what's really going on inside of a strategic pivot, you want to make sure that you have every advantage through this. It's really about how well will you communicate where you're going, why you're going to do this, but also what's really necessary to create alignment across the team. That is all about the leadership you're trying to create. Today's special guest is Brandon Hurd. He is the CEO of BHRS Companies. They're a commercial real estate, modular development, but also construction management. There's a lot of pieces to their company, but they made 161 on the Inc. list. And it's a fantastic discussion with Brandon about leadership through a strategic pivot. We go through 3 pieces of this that you can learn from, and I love the fact that we kind of dive into each one of those pieces and break down why they're so important and what's necessary. There are little pieces on the edge of this 3-step plan that you really want to make sure you get right if you want to create a culture that really pivots through any kind of change that you have in front of you. Everything I know about leadership and really growing a fast growth company comes from my own experience of growing a fast company, but also the interviews I do here, but mostly from the coaching I do with leaders and founders of fast growth companies. I work primarily with the Inc. 5000 level companies. I help them really understand the key elements of leadership. One of the big things that gets in the way of you being the leader that you really need to be is the fact that you are not evolving fast enough for the company to continue to evolve. A lot of leaders stay up at night really kind of wondering, will they be able to manage the chaos and will they really become the leader that this team needs? Well, that's exactly where I come in. I can help you understand where the gaps are, what really is most important for your leadership so that you can take your company to the next level. If you want to have that conversation with me, make sure you go to genehammett.com. It's all about you committing to yourself to be a better leader, and I can help you do that through these conversations. Just go to genehammett.com. Now here's the interview with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Good afternoon, Gene. Doing well.
Awesome to have you on the show to talk about leadership and culture that drives fast growth companies. I wanted to go ahead and ask you about your current company. I've already talked about you as a leader and what we talk about today, but what is BHRS Companies?
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on the show, on the podcast. Really appreciate the opportunity. BHRS Companies, as we have identified, is a real property services firm. And we really got focused on 3 key areas of business, which to us are all very related. But as a real property services firm, our core business is construction management and contracting. Part of being a fast growth company is identifying opportunities in the marketplace, and particularly with having customers that you're servicing and trying to take really good care of. Sometimes they come to you with needs or opportunities to grow your business. And one of the things that really led to our growth is by expanding our services to our customers to one of our divisions, which is commercial real estate. And the third one, which is probably one we'll talk about a lot today in the most recent economic environment, is our modular building division, Fabricon Modular, which is really exciting. So that's a modular manufacturing and modular construction business.
Well, I appreciate the depth of the company. You guys made the Inc. list. You were what, 161? Is that right?
161 in our first year. Yep.
When you think about growing that fast and really, were you surprised by that, or did you want to be higher in the rankings?
I was extremely surprised. So we had applied, I think the year prior, and we had missed some eligibility requirements. I think it was age or something of the sort. So when I had applied and in my excitement, I figured we'd probably fall somewhere in the middle of the list. And then when it came out and I saw 161, I was extremely pleased and humbled, but also gave some validity to those growing pains that we had experienced and compared to some peers that we were growing pretty quick. So it was a very cool time, very cool acknowledgement to receive that award.
Well, I appreciate you sharing the story with us. The chaos of fast growth is not easy. Just take me back to a little bit of some of that chaos. Like what are some of the challenges you had to overcome as the company was growing fast?
So I think the opportunities, the opportunity to talk about chaos and growing pains is endless. Mainly because when I started the company in 2014, it was somewhat of a naive start, the old leap of faith. And having started it, I never really appreciated what it would take to grow a fast company. It definitely exceeded my expectations in growth. It exceeded my expectations with what would be required to help it grow. And it has been a heck of a journey. And I think with the one recurring theme that has been clear throughout this whole process is the need for having good quality people part of the team, because it became very apparent early on that my limitations to growth were essentially, I was using the analogy, throwing and catching your own passes. You can only throw and catch so many passes yourself eventually where you hit capacity. And so I became quickly understanding the need to have a good team in place. But it's been it's been a fast journey. And what's interesting too is what you think you may need in 1 year or 1 month or what have you changes 6 months later, and the environment is constantly changing with fast growth as well. So it's also very demanding with the people. So finding the right people in place who can handle that fast growth, think innovatively, think entrepreneurially, have the resilience, and also to believe in the mission of what we're trying to do. Has probably been the toughest challenge, but also that we've been in this business now coming into our 7th year of business. We've got a really good team in place. And I do anticipate the growth will continue, but that's been the biggest theme here is focusing on the people.
Well, that's a very common, thinking for fast growth companies. A lot of companies don't get this because I asked the impossible question, and I'll ask you, and I'm always hesitant to ask because I never know what's going to happen. But the impossible question goes like this: as a fast growth leader, what's more important, your customers or your employees?
Chicken or the egg? That's really a tough question. I mean, there are situations where you can't have a business without customers, but yet you can't do business without people. I think if I had to pick, ultimately it would be customers are more important. But I would say a very close second behind that is your people on your team.
So 94% of Inc. level leaders know the importance of people inside their companies, and they say people 94% of the time.
I'm a 6% minority, I guess.
You're in the minority here. But I know it's a hard question because it is, you got to have both inside of companies that are growing fast. And I've had many people tell me, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm like, this is not my idea. Now, I will tell you, I ran a fast growth company, as we talked about earlier, and it really is hard to scale beyond your own ideas if those people don't feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves and that leaders are really taking care of them.
Yes, 100% agree.
You had mentioned something about the entrepreneur spirit, and that's a big part of my research and my work and the book I'm writing. What exactly is the entrepreneur spirit inside of a company like yours?
So that's a great question. Entrepreneurship in itself, is a different way of thinking, is a different way of acting, is a different way of putting things together. And mainly it's a way of capitalizing on opportunities. So, when you're in a more, we'll call it non-entrepreneurship environment, you live on a lot of policies, a lot of procedures, a lot of this is the way we do things, a lot of established principles and things that have been tried, true, and proven to be, work. In entrepreneurship environment, you don't even know if things are going to work sometimes. And also you don't even know what processes you need because you don't have them in place yet. So as you grow up with that kind of culture, it's having the ability to have people to see the forest through the trees, again, understand the mission, and sometimes focus on that the ends is more important than the means. But also when you do successfully overcome, or when you do successfully accomplish those tasks, to learn from it and put things into place so that as you scale and grow the team, you can teach that to the people, the second generation, the people that are coming into the company about how we do things and what makes us work.
Let me add something else about this entrepreneurial spirit. One of the things that I really love to see within fast growth companies is not just the entrepreneur spirit, but a spirit where people feel a sense of ownership. In fact, if leaders inspire people to feel this ownership, not only do they have this connection and meaning to the work that they need, but everyone is aligned together toward the big mission. And this feeling of ownership comes when you have some of the key pieces that we talk about in a lot of the interviews all together inside your leadership. You've got to be very intentional about this. I'm not going to go through them today, but you want to make sure that you as a leader are evolving fast enough so that people feel a sense of ownership across their work, because that's where the meaning comes. That's where they are, hitting any challenge in front of them head on, and they're really addressing all of this stuff without you having to weigh in on it. They're making decisions because they're empowered. They feel this sense of ownership, and it starts with you. If you want to make sure you're that type of leader, make sure you check out some of the resources we have. Just go to genehammett.com. You can find free resources. And if you want to have a conversation with me, you can do that as well. I'd love to talk to you about your own leadership and your journey. But for now, back to Brandon. Perfect. I love the way you described that. You have had to make some specific changes in your strategy over the years, and you've had to lead through those changes. Give us an idea of something you faced as a company where you had to shift your strategy.
So coming into most recently, I hate to play on the economic situation with COVID, but it really is such a big impact. And coming all the way up through 2018, 2019, our business was really well positioned on the heels of a large economic run. And all that stuff we just talked about, all the policies, the procedures, the best practices, all the things we had in place in March of 2020 just immediately seemed to disappear. And for us, we face our target market is primarily in the restaurant, the commercial retail sector of the market. And that was just probably hit very hard. So what that forced us to do is we had a team in place who knew what to do. We had a team in place who was very qualified to do our work, but we found that our work was shifting. And one of the areas that I quickly kind of connected the dots was we have the Fabricon modular portion of our business, again, which is the modular manufacturing, had a very preconceived notion of what modular construction is. But yet my experience with some of the association groups that I participate within, I was kind of listening to some opportunities, and then I decided to put these two separate companies essentially together that we had just previously separated a couple of years ago, because we were finding that customers didn't quite know how to interpret it at the time. And, are you a modular company or are you a construction company? And the answer is we're both. So we had just done a whole rebranding to separate these two units. And then here's COVID presenting itself that maybe it makes more sense to bring them back. But what we learned from that rebranding process was putting ourselves in the consumer's perspective. So now I've got people who are a team who's trained on how to service customers in one way. And now I've got to show them that the tools they actually have in place can just be repurposed for a different consumer's perspective. So that's been a challenge over the last year. We've been seeing some really cool opportunities within. There's been some really opportunistic projects that have hit our desk, but changes like that, again, are constant. And for right now, that's something that we're seeing a really exciting time in is again, the splitting, but coming back together of those two business units.
So change is constant. And one of the things I think leaders struggle with is, making a big decision. And I didn't realize the background of this is that you'd already split them up and then you had to bring them back together.
Yeah.
Were you concerned about kind of not being able to create the alignment you need with your people? Or what was your concern as you had to make this big pivot?
So prior to this, the split, that was exactly what I had been experiencing, was the alignment. And it was really hard, to use a phrase again, boil the ocean, to get everybody to understand what it was we were trying to do. Everybody understands it in concept, but when it comes to actually doing it, it was very challenging to teach because it was so comprehensive. So I was actually afraid that if we didn't separate at the time, people wouldn't understand. But it was funny because at the end of the day, all that we did was change some marketing, packaging. But when we put them back together, all of a sudden it was crystal clear what we were able to do. So it was actually pretty interesting. And one of the things I've learned with fast change is sometimes to lower my expectations or have no expectations, or just to make decisions and run with them, because things that you thought would happen aren't going to happen, and things that you never thought were going to happen are going to happen. So it's just interesting to respond and react to the things that present.
What have you learned as a leader and how you communicate a pivot change that we could all benefit from?
So I think it's really important to understand as the leader where it is you're trying to go and why you're trying to go there, and strategically communicate the reason and how to do it with your team. But it's extremely important, again, because a lot of times people understand that, but the how is a challenging part. I think as a leader, if you know where to go, where you're going, again, that squiggly line, it's going to be all over the place how you get there, but just be confident to lead them and show them how to do it. Even if it's on the fly, give them the opportunity to lead and show them how to do it firsthand, and make everybody feel comfortable with it.
Brandon, when you talk about how, a lot of my clients know that the best way to grow and scale a company is not to tell people how to do the work or whatever the next step is, but to let them figure it out and truly empower them. Is that something you've embraced at the company?
Absolutely. So that's a good opportunity to clarify that. So it's not necessarily showing them how to do the task or the specific bullet points of how to do things. It's how we're going to do it is and kind of set them on a course trajectory or a strategy in a direction to allow those people to use their creative juices, if you will, and use their learnings and applications in a specific department or relationship with a customer and figure out the best means to do it. And absolutely, I think you hire smart people, as Steve Jobs said, you don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. You hire smart people and let them do what they're best at, because they're smart and they're innovative. And my job has become promoting that environment and giving the coach and the guardrails around them.
Brandon just talked about hiring smart people. You absolutely have to hire smart people if you want to create a kind of company where people love to come to work. Smart people do require a different kind of leadership. In fact, if you micromanage smart people, they'll probably leave you. If you don't empower them to truly think for themselves, they'll probably leave you. If you don't give them the space to fail and move forward, they'll probably leave you. I go through this because if you want to hire smart people and you want to be a magnet for talent inside your organization, across your company, then you want to make sure you're leading people the right way. It all starts with you. You can't blame other people and wish they were smarter because you hired them. You created the systems that allow those people to be hired. And it all comes back to you. If you don't get that, then you probably are going to struggle as a leader and as an entrepreneur in the fast growth world. I know this from experience because I've been through it, and I help others do it all the time with my work as an executive coach. Make sure that you understand what it takes to hire smart people and become the kind of leader that they want to work with. Back to Brandon. I noticed on your website that you have your values posted there. I'm always kind of curious, is that something you guys just have on the website, or do these values actually mean something to you guys on a daily basis across the company?
So today's, every single day, every week we have a Monday morning meeting where we go through, and every month we have what we call a town hall update, if you will, where we talk about all the different happenings from sales, marketing, operations, general business. And actually it's the second part of our agenda during our monthly call, where different people in the department, myself included, different people in different departments, will talk about some of our core 4 values, which is part of that mission, vision, and values. And one of the things I love to do with that is kind of go back to the why factor is I get customer testimonials. We get, we had one from a vendor we work with who said, man, we really appreciate the way you guys do this. And that's a really good opportunity for us to, at that time, when the mission, vision, values is up, present examples like that we're getting from the marketplace, not only from our customers, but also people with whom we work with every day. And we could share those things. I think it really gives a lot of credence to what it is that we're doing. I love it. I think everybody in our team loves it. And it's not just something on our website. We practice it every single day.
I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I ask questions. I don't know where it could be, but I know that fast growth companies tend to really rely on those being a part of the everyday conversation. And the more they make them into the day-to-day work, the operationalization of those values, they begin to live it, not just have something that they talk about once or twice a year.
Yeah, every day.
When you think about your own leadership, Brandon, like, what is the thing that you really are working on now to be a better leader and to be really the kind of leader your people need?
So that's a great question. It's always about people development. Sometimes as a leader, if you're being honest, you worry about your own limitations of being a good leader. We talk about, again, not just practicing what we preach, but also, mission, vision, values. I'm a big proponent of education. So one of the benefits that we have for our team members is different training, certifications, tuition reimbursement. And it's not just putting it out there, but again, leading by example. I recently just took a course through Harvard Business School online on leadership development. Had a great cohort, I think it was a 6 or 8 week study. And as a leader, I want to make sure that I'm leading my team most appropriately and accurately and up-to-date information, and also building my network. Because if I can't provide that kind of environment, then I think I'm doing everybody else a disservice.
What is the biggest thing you learned that maybe you weren't already doing through that leadership development course at Harvard?
The same problems that we have are the same problems that many other businesses have. So it's very comforting to know that, everybody has challenges, and one of the inherent things of being a leader is how you manage those challenges. That was one thing, is leadership development, to understand that part of being a leader is how to navigate the challenges, not so much as the task of doing your business, but how to lead your team through these. So that's something that was very interesting to learn, that from global enterprises to small startups, a lot of the fundamental issues are experienced at all levels and all sizes.
So you didn't get very specific with that. I guess I'm curious, what are the kind of problems that these leaders are having?
Scaling, HR, access to capital. Everybody has great ideas, but you got to fund it somehow. You got annual budgets. Again, same thing we're talking about here is people. How do you find the right people? Who's got the right skill set? With the competitive landscape of the job market right now, there's a lot of great people out there as well. But again, trying to find the right skill set, and there's a lot of competition. So as a small business, you've got to really rest on the culture that you put in place, because we may not have the biggest, coolest, baddest name on the side of our building. We don't even have a building that has our name on it, right? We don't even have a high rise, but some people want that. And at the end of the day, to work for a dynamic team that can get things done as part of our culture is our big selling point, and the success that we have and our mission, all those things. But at the end of the day, like I said, the fundamental problems of supply chains and all those different things, that's just part of the challenge of being in business. And the successful companies are the ones that have successful leadership in place. So that was really something to kind of keep a true north on, a direction on, an eye on, is that, hey, these challenges aren't unique to us. This is the way you do it, and just get better at doing it in practice.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for being a part of the Growth Think Tank conversation on leadership and culture. I think what you contributed here is pretty powerful.
Great. Well, thank you.
So let me wrap up a little bit here, because I want to make sure we bring this all together. Any kind of major pivot shift that your company goes through, you do have to get clear about the vision of where you're going. And then you also have to connect to why, because a lot of companies leave out why you're making this shift. Why are we doing it together? And then finally, empowering them to figure out the how of that journey, because that really will change the dynamics of a culture and the people around you, because they want to be a part of something where they're contributing their ideas, contributing their own thoughts to this, and not just, waiting for the next step. If you're looking for your next step as a leader and transforming into a more powerful version of yourself, make sure you reach out to some of the free resources we have. We have a peer-to-peer group that is really about you growing with other fast growth leaders. If you want to check that out, just go to fastgrowthboardroom.com, and you can hang out with others. We do some really cool, interesting things like race Porsches and talk about what leadership looks like in fast growth companies.
Cool. You hit on something that's I've had the opportunity to observe firsthand in the last year, 2 years mainly, is when people make their contributions and letting them figure things out. And sometimes they're spot on, sometimes they need some course correction. But when they've created the departments or the culture or ways to do things, it's really cool to sit back and let people run with it. And the success just kind of keeps on coming with that. So I really enjoy that opportunity about my position, to watch people get creative and empower them. That's one thing I really love about it.
Perfect. Well, that wraps up our episode here on the Growth Tank. If you think of fast growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.